The earth trembled under the weight of galloping hooves. Iron wheels clattered a relentless rhythm on the dirt road slicing through Wyoming, each jolt a reminder to the passengers that they were leaving behind all that was familiar. Selina Carter sat huddled in a corner of the stagecoach, her worn satchel clutched tight against her chest. Her hands, bronzed by years of chalk dust in a Philadelphia schoolhouse, gripped the leather until her knuckles paled. It was 1878. The nation had staggered through the blood-soaked storms of civil war, but here, in the wilds of the West, men and women still wrestled to carve out a life amid untamed nature and loose laws. For a black woman like Selina, the past had never been kind. The school where she taught had shuttered for lack of funds. Her family was gone, and work in the city had dwindled to nothing. When a clipped advertisement appeared in a newspaper, "Prosperous rancher seeks educated wife, travel fare provided," she had sat up through the night, weighing her choices. In the end, she had nodded to herself, but now, as the stagecoach lurched closer to Silver Creek, fear gnawed at her. Whispers of mail-order brides haunted her, trapped in loveless unions, bound to strangers, sometimes cruel ones. Selina swallowed hard. No, she would not let her fate be shackled like that. 10 minutes to Silver Creek Station! The driver's voice boomed, cutting through the howl of the wind. Selina's heart pounded like a war drum. Through the long miles from Cheyenne, a plan had taken shape. When the coach stopped, amid the chaos of unloading luggage, she would slip away. Sewn into the lining of her dress was enough coin for a return ticket east. Come morning, she'd board a stage headed back to Philadelphia. No one could stop her. The wheels screeched to a halt before the dust-caked station. Selina drew a deep breath, pulling her bonnet low to shadow her face. An elderly couple fumbled with their valises. A merchant barked orders to unload his wares. The station master approached, his voice warm with welcome. "Miss Carter? A gentleman's waiting for you inside." She nodded, her lips curving into a polite smile. "Thank you. I'll be right in. But if you'll excuse me, I need the outhouse after this long ride." The man tipped his hat, understanding, and turned back to the station. Selina seized her chance. She darted around the weathered wooden building, then crouched low, sprinting toward the cottonwood grove at the edge of the yard. Her pulse thundered. Her breath came in gasps. Beyond those trees lay freedom. But a voice stopped her, low and warm, carrying no trace of anger. "Miss Carter, I presume." Selina froze. Among the tall cottonwoods, a man leaned against a trunk, arms crossed. The late afternoon sun glinted off his wide-brimmed hat, but beneath it, eyes of piercing blue studied her with quiet calm. Her breath caught. This man wasn't what she'd imagined, not some grizzled, hard-bitten rancher. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his skin burnished by years under the open sky. His face was chiseled, yet softened by a gentleness she hadn't expected. Selina stammered, her feet rooted to the ground. "You're runnin'," he said, finishing her thought, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I don't blame you. Comin' all this way to meet a stranger ain't exactly a woman's dream." His words disarmed her. She straightened, summoning the last of her courage. "You're right. I won't marry a man I don't love or know." The man tipped his hat back, revealing hair the color of ripe wheat, gilded by the fading sun. He dipped his head in a slight bow. "Elias Morgan, the one who placed that ad." Selina's throat tightened. This was him, the man from the letter. She'd braced for someone older, colder, but here stood a man in his 30s, his eyes crinkled with faint laugh lines. "Mr. Morgan, I'm sorry, but I'm headin' back east come mornin'." Elias settled his hat back, his gaze steady, not a flicker of anger. "You're free to do that. I won't stop you. I don't want a prisoner in my home. I was hoping for a partner." Selina blinked, caught off guard. "You won't make me stay?" "No." His eyes held hers, unwavering. "But I've got a proposition. Stay 2 weeks. See my ranch, meet the folks in Silver Creek. If you still want to leave after that, I'll pay your fare back myself." A gust swept through the cottonwoods, stirring Selina's cloak. Those blue eyes didn't waver, gentle, yet resolute. Elias stepped closer, his calloused hand brushing her bonnet to shield her from the sun. The fleeting touch grazed her hair, sending an unexpected flutter through her chest. "And what do I get from this deal?" she asked, her voice still wary. "A chance to see I didn't lie in that ad." He paused, his voice dropping low. "A chance for us both to find out if this could be more than a transaction." In that moment, Selina saw a path unfolding before her. 2 weeks, a fleeting span compared to a lifetime, but long enough to find an answer for her heart. She tightened her grip on her satchel, then gave a slow nod. 2 weeks, but I'm promising nothing more." A true smile broke across Elias's sun-weathered face. He extended a hand, gesturing back toward the station. Selina hesitated, then placed her hand in his. His palm was warm, steady, gripping hers with a quiet vow. The distant clatter of hooves echoed again, but this time Selina didn't think of running. Her heart, though still trembling, stirred with curiosity about what lay ahead in the 2 weeks at Morgan's Crossing. The wooden wheels of the wagon creaked along a narrow trail winding into the valley. Selina sat beside Elias, her hands clutching her worn satchel as if it were her last shield. Before her unfolded a sight she'd never known. Rolling hills draped in silver-green grass, swaying under the breath of the wind, a creek twisting like a ribbon of molten light, and beyond, a herd of horses grazing beneath a sky too vast for mercy. Selina swallowed hard. Every tale she'd heard of the West spoke of savagery, violence, and hardship. Yet, for a fleeting moment, she couldn't deny the boundless beauty before her. It deepened her unease, making her feel small, but also lightened it, as if this land whispered of new beginnings. Elias held the reins steady, his sun-weathered face betraying little. But his eyes flicked toward her now and then, checking if she was at ease. She caught those glances and turned away, her heart stirring at his quiet attention. "That's Morgan's Crossing up ahead," Elias said, his voice low and warm. "Started with a single cabin 8 years back. It's come a long way since." As the wagon crested a rise, the house came into view. A 2-story log home with a broad porch, smoke curling from a stone chimney. Nearby stood orderly barns, a granary, and fences encircling fields of grazing land. The scene wasn't makeshift, but solid, deliberate, a testament to years of unyielding labor. Selina sat silent, her thoughts churning. She'd braced for a ramshackle hut and a coarse loner. Instead, here was a thriving homestead, its owner not just strong, but careful, a man who built with purpose. The wagon halted before the porch. Elias stepped down first, offering a hand to steady her. His calloused palm brushed her waist as her skirt caught on the wooden step. A brief touch, but it sent heat rushing to her face. She fought to keep her composure, though his eyes followed her every move, as if nothing escaped him. An older woman emerged from the house, her silver hair neatly pinned, her apron dusted with flour, her eyes bright with curiosity. Elias introduced her. Mrs. Abernathy, my housekeeper, comes 3 times a week to keep the kitchen and house in order. Welcome to Morgan's Crossing, Mrs. Abernathy said, her smile kind, her voice rough but warm. That journey must have worn you out. I've got a room ready and hot water for washing. Selina nodded, murmuring thanks. Those simple words carried more weight than any grand speech, easing the strangeness in her heart. Elias hefted her luggage onto the porch, his muscled arms straining under his faded shirt. Selina followed, noting the contrast between his weathered confidence and her own hesitant steps. Inside, the house surprised her again. Far from rough or barren, it radiated warmth. The wide parlor held a stone fireplace, its mantel adorned with landscape sketches. Worn but sturdy upholstered chairs sat near a long bookshelf stretching to the ceiling, brimming with volumes on farming, history, and poetry. On a table, a clay jug held wildflowers, likely placed by Mrs. Abernathy. Selina's fingers grazed the spine of a book. She hadn't expected a Western rancher to read Homer or Tennyson. That detail sparked a curiosity she couldn't quell. "It suit you?" Elias asked, standing behind her. His tone wasn't pressing, just a quiet invitation to judge for herself. She turned, meeting his steady blue gaze. "I didn't expect this. I thought it'd be plainer." A faint smile curved his lips. "First few years, it was. But if I'm to stay, this place needs to be a home. A man can't face the West with just wood and stone. He needs warmth." His words, simple yet resonant, struck Selina. She thought of her dingy Philadelphia boarding room, where the only warmth came from her own body curled under a thin blanket. For the first time, her heart softened, tempted to believe him. Mrs. Abernathy led her to a guest room, small but tidy, with a sturdy wooden bed, a hand-stitched quilt, and a wash basin with a clean towel. The window opened to the valley, where horses ambled toward the creek. Selina pressed her palm to the cool wooden frame, gazing out, a nameless ache tightening her throat. That evening, supper was served: fresh baked bread, stewed meat, and garden greens. Selina sat across from Elias. He spoke little, but his eyes lingered on her, when she sliced her bread, when she lifted her glass. Each glance left her flustered, yet she couldn't help noticing him in return. After the meal, they sat by the hearth. Mrs. Abernathy bustled off home, leaving the room to just the two of them. Selina heard the crackle of burning logs and the moan of the wind outside. She sat still, hands folded in her lap, her pulse quickening for no reason she could name. Elias leaned forward, tossing another log into the fire, then turned back. In the glow of the embers, his face was a study in strong lines softened by kindness. "Tomorrow, I'll show you the ranch. You need to see it all before deciding if you can stomach 2 weeks here." Selina nodded, grateful for his candor. He didn't hide or make empty promises. That honesty steadied her in a way she hadn't expected. That night, in her room, she opened the window to let in the cool breeze. Far off, lantern light flickered from the barns, and a horse's whinny carried on the air. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heart race. 2 weeks, she told herself. Just 2 weeks. But deep down, a part of her knew those weeks would change her life forever. Afternoon light spilled through the window, bathing the parlor in a soft golden glow. Selina stood at the frame, her eyes tracing the rhythm of the ranch outside. Hired hands crossed the yard with bundles of hay slung over their shoulders, and a horse's whinny drifted from the barns. This place pulsed with a life of its own, steady, diligent, nothing like the clamor of Philadelphia's streets she once knew. Supper was laid out promptly. Mrs. Abernathy set a steaming pot of stew at the table's center, its savory aroma mingling with the scent of fresh-baked bread. Selina sat across from Elias, striving for composure. Yet every detail of this place felt both foreign and disarming. The polished cutlery, the hand-embroidered tablecloth, the oil lamp casting a warm shimmer across the face of the man before her. "Long journey must have worn you down," Mrs. Abernathy said, ladling a spoonful of stew into Selina's bowl, her voice brimming with care. "Thank you, ma'am. I'm managing," Selina replied, a faint smile masking the tension in her grip on the spoon. Elias sliced his bread with slow, deliberate cuts, his movements steady. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers, voice calm. "Heard you taught school back in Philadelphia?" Selina hesitated, then nodded. "I did. Reading, writing, basic arithmetic. The school closed, though. Ran out of funds." His eyes seemed to brighten for a moment. "An educated woman, devoted to her work. I didn't figure I'd be that fortunate." Selina lowered her gaze, flustered. The simple praise rang in her chest like a lingering note. She was used to being overlooked, pushed to the margins, especially for the color of her skin. Now, across from a Western rancher, those words warmed her like a small flame. Mrs. Abernathy chimed in, her smile sly. "Your host there, Miss Carter, ain't just a man of the land. Studied mechanical engineering back east, he did. Then left it all for this place." Selina's head snapped up, surprise unguarded. "Is that true?" Elias gave a slight nod, as if it were no great matter. "Spent years hunched over drafts and numbers in an office. But I came west to see my work build something real. Houses, fields, herds, things you can touch, not just lines on paper." Selina fell silent. Part of her understood. She too had left safety behind to chase a deeper purpose. But what stirred her heart was the way he spoke, his gaze not lost in the distance but resting quietly on her hands, on the slender fingers curled around the silver spoon. She set the spoon down, tucking her hands into her lap. Her breath hitched. The meal passed in comfortable quiet. The wind's low moan outside and the crackle of the hearth provided a backdrop. Elias asked little, but each time his eyes found hers, Selina felt a pull she couldn't shake. After clearing the table, Mrs. Abernathy bid them good night and left, leaving the house wrapped in stillness. Selina lingered at the staircase, her hand grazing the wooden rail, unsure what to say. Elias sat by the fire, his long legs stretched out, his face softened by the glow of embers. He looked up, their eyes meeting, and she quickly turned away. "Sleep well, Miss Carter," he said, his voice low and warm, free of pretense. Selina murmured a reply, then climbed the stairs. Her room still held the evening's warmth. Moonlight slipped through the window, painting silver streaks across the wooden floor. Selina set her satchel down, shed her cloak, and sank onto the bed. The springs creaked softly under her slight frame. She glanced around. Sturdy log walls, a small table by the window, a wash basin still steaming faintly. This wasn't the makeshift room of an abandoned bride. It was prepared with care, as if someone had considered her comfort before she'd even arrived. Selina lay back, pulling the hand-stitched quilt to her shoulders. Her heart wouldn't settle. Her mind replayed the afternoon, the sprawling fields, the smoke curling from the porch, those blue eyes lingering on her hands. Fear still gnawed at her. She worried she'd wagered her life on a reckless choice. But alongside it bloomed a new curiosity. She wanted to know the man behind Elias Morgan's calm demeanor, beyond his measured gestures. She wanted to understand why he hadn't raged when he caught her fleeing, why he'd offered her a choice instead. The night breeze slipped through the window's crack, carrying the scent of dry grass and chimney smoke. Selina closed her eyes, her hands clasped over her chest. Part of her wanted to fortify her heart, to guard it. But another part, small yet undeniable, yearned for tomorrow, to see more of the man whose steady gaze set her pulse racing. The first night at Morgan's Crossing closed in a tangle of fear and hope, like a blank page awaiting its story. The first morning at Morgan's Crossing dawned with light like honey, seeping through the window to warm the room. Selina stirred, roused by distant rooster crows and the steady clop of hooves from the barns. The stillness was so deep, she could feel her heartbeat weaving into the breath of the land. Down in the kitchen, Elias was waiting, his shirt sleeves rolled up, boots dusted with morning dew. He set a steaming mug of milk and a slice of buttered bread before her. "Eat something before we head out," he said, his voice low, not commanding. Selina nodded, lifting the mug. Its warmth eased her nerves. She wondered what he had planned. But before she could ask, Elias gestured toward the stables. "I'll show you how big Morgan's Crossing really is." Soon, they were riding out from the yard. Selina was given a gentle chestnut mare, steady and sure. When Elias's hand brushed hers to adjust the reins, his warmth sent a shiver through her. The morning breeze grazed her cheeks as they rode across the prairie. Memories flooded back. As a girl in Philadelphia, her father had taken her to a park, renting a horse to circle the lake. He'd taught her to balance, to move with the animal's rhythm. His laughter had been her favorite sound. Now her eyes stung, but the sharp wind dried them before Elias could notice. They crossed vast grasslands, cattle grazing lazily, wooden fences stretching along the trail. Elias pointed out his hayfields, then nodded toward distant hills. "Beyond there's Davidson's land, a hard man, but that's a story for another day." By midday, they paused at a crystal-clear creek, its waters murmuring over smooth stones, glinting like shattered mirrors in the sun. Selina knelt, her fingers grazing the icy flow, a chill rippling through her. Elias's gaze lingered on her damp hands. He said nothing, just sat on a nearby rock, his eyes deep and quiet. Selina noticed, but pretended not to, her heart quickening. "This creek's been here since the first folks came through," Elias said. "It was a rest stop for wagon trains, lifeblood for the earliest ranches. I keep it as a reminder. This land don't belong to one man. It's for those who cherish it." Selina listened, her eyes lifting to his. In the sunlight filtering through the leaves, his face seemed etched deeper, strong yet thoughtful. His words stirred her. He wasn't just a tireless rancher, but a man who looked beyond, who preserved. After a brief rest, they rode on. By late afternoon, Silver Creek came into view, not large but lively, with shops lining the main street. A blacksmith, a general store, a diner, and a small wooden schoolhouse. Townsfolk greeted Elias warmly, smiles breaking across their faces. "Mr. Morgan," a shopkeeper called, waving. "Got that hay shipment, thanks to your word." Selina walked beside him, feeling curious eyes on hers. As a black woman from the East, she knew acceptance wasn't guaranteed. She tightened her grip on the reins. But Elias leaned close, his voice low. Don't fret. Silver Creek judges a person, not their skin. His brief words steadied her. They stopped at the schoolhouse where a gray-haired woman greeted them. Mr. Morgan, and this is Selina Carter, Elias said, his gaze on her tinged with pride. A teacher from Philadelphia. The woman's smile widened, her handshake warm. Wonderful. We need teachers. The school's doors are open if you're willing. Selina's chest swelled. For months, she'd thought her teaching days were over. Yet this far-flung town offered a welcome. At the general store, the jovial owner regaled her with tales of Elias rebuilding his roof after a storm. Others spoke of Elias's donations to the school. Each story painted him as more than a solitary rancher, a pillar of this community. Selina watched, silent. Through Elias, she, an outsider, was met with kind eyes. As dusk fell, they rode back to Morgan's Crossing. The cool evening breeze brushed her face, and Selina tilted her head, letting the sunset's gold paint her skin. Elias rode beside her, quiet, but his gaze lingered on her curling hair, on her hands steady on the reins after a long day. She felt his look, and for the first time she didn't shy away. A strange warmth bloomed in her chest, as if Silver Creek wasn't just a place for a 2-week trial, but a home where she might begin anew. A crescent moon hung low in the Wyoming sky, casting a silver sheen over the wooden roof of Silver Creek's heart. Tonight, the small church doubling as a town hall glowed with the flicker of oil lamps, alive with laughter and voices. The townsfolk gathered to discuss the school, the harvest, and the small matters binding their community. Selina walked beside Elias, her fingers clutching her small cloth bag as if it were a shield. Curious eyes turned her way, not the scorn she'd endured in Philadelphia, but a genuine curiosity, sometimes tinged with caution. Elias tipped his hat to a few men, returning their hearty handshakes. "This is Selina Carter," he said, his voice steady, carrying across the room. "A teacher from Philadelphia." A murmur rippled through the crowd, not unkind. Mrs. Hensley, the gray-haired schoolteacher they'd met earlier, stepped forward with a warm smile. "That's fine news. Our town needs teachers, especially with more children every year." A middle-aged man, likely the blacksmith, spoke up. "Miss Carter, you sure you want to teach in a backwater like this? Philadelphia's got to be an easier life." Selina drew a deep breath. For a moment she recalled the slights she'd faced. That a black woman should stick to menial work. That teaching was beyond her reach. But Elias's gaze beside her gleamed with encouragement, with belief. She straightened, her voice firm. "I believe knowledge belongs to everyone, not bound by skin or status. If this town needs me, I'll teach. Silver Creek's children deserve to read and write, same as any in this country." The room fell silent for a heartbeat. Then applause broke out, first from one corner, then spreading wide. Selina's chest swelled, her cheeks flushing. Elias looked at her, saying nothing, but the light in his eyes sent her heart stumbling. It wasn't just pride. It was respect, raw and real. When Mrs. Hensley invited Selina to the small wooden platform to speak more, she hesitated. Elias stepped forward, offering his hand. His calloused palm brushed hers, sending an unexpected warmth through her. Selina flinched, but didn't pull away. For a fleeting moment, time seemed to pause. "Mind the step," Elias murmured, his voice low, just for her. Selina ascended, hiding a faint smile. She shared her teaching experience, using games to teach letters, stories to instill morals. Her words were met with attentive nods, faces softening from curiosity to warmth. When she finished, she saw approval in their eyes, a welcome she hadn't dared hope for. After the meeting, talk turned to crops and roads. Selina stood near Elias, feeling an odd closeness. She overheard an old man whisper, "Morgan's a lucky man. She'll be a strength to this town." Her cheeks burned, but she busied herself chatting with Mrs. Hensley. Elias stayed silent, his hand loosely gripping his hat's brim, as if hiding a smile. As they left the hall, the night wind swept through, cold and dry. Elias walked beside her, his eyes occasionally drifting her way. Selina felt it, but didn't meet his gaze. They both sensed the distance between them shrinking, though neither spoke it aloud. On the dirt road back to the ranch, Selina sat in the wagon, her fingers smoothing her skirt. Her mind replayed his hand on hers, the spark in his eyes when she spoke of education. She'd thought this place a mere stopover, but that certainty was fraying. Elias held the reins, quiet through the ride. Yet within him, a quiet joy smoldered. He was used to battling land and weather, but the pride he felt tonight filled his chest. Selina wasn't just a stranger anymore. She was becoming part of this place, a part he longed to keep. That night, in her room, Selina eased the door shut, leaning against the wood. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heart race. In the darkness, she told herself, just 2 weeks. But if things continued this way, 2 weeks might be enough to change everything. That afternoon, black clouds rolled in from the western mountains. Thunder rumbled like a giant's drum, heralding a fierce storm. Elias had just secured the barn doors when the first raindrops lashed the earth, churning red dust into slick mud. Inside the log house, Selina stood by the window, her heart pounding in time with the howling wind. She'd never seen a western storm, its raw power both savage and untamed. When Elias stepped in, his shirt soaked, she turned, catching his gaze. "All's set," he said, bolting the door. "Livestock safe, barns locked tight. Now we just ride out the night." In the parlor, flames danced in the hearth. Elias tossed in another log, then softened his voice. "Care for some tea? Mrs. Abernathy left dried mint." Selina nodded. Soon, warmth and the scent of mint filled the room. She settled into an armchair by the fire, taking the cup from his hand. Their fingers brushed briefly, but the heat lingered, racing up her arm. The wind screamed outside, but within, the air felt different. Warm, close, charged with something that set Selina's nerves on edge. Elias sat across from her, then, after a quiet moment, dragged his chair closer until they were a mere arm's length apart. Selina opened a book of Tennyson's poetry on the table, reading lines aloud to drown out the storm. Her voice, soft and warm, filled the space. Elias listened, his eyes fixed on her lips moving in the firelight. When she looked up, his deep blue gaze locked with hers. A hush fell, broken only by the snap of burning logs. Elias spoke, his voice rough. "Selina, I don't want a marriage just for a deal. I want more." Her heart clenched. She'd told herself these 2 weeks were a test, a safe distance to keep. But the sincerity in his eyes pinned her in place. She drew a breath. "Elias, I'm starting to believe in you, in your words, in how you live. And that scares me." Trust isn't something I give easily. He reached out, his hand grazing her shoulder. The simple touch made her tremble. He didn't rush, only whispered, "Give me a chance." Not to prove myself, but to see what this could be. Selina met his gaze where firelight sparked gold and green. There was no possession in his eyes, only an earnest invitation. "Elias," her voice faltered, almost a confession. "If you want." He leaned closer, his voice a low breeze. "Let me kiss you." In that moment, the house seemed to hold its breath. Selina gave a slight nod. Elias leaned in, his lips brushing hers like smoke at first, then deepening as she responded, a hunger long suppressed surging between them. The teacup slipped to the rug, unnoticed. The hearth's red glow lit their faces, tracing every quiver of lips, every quickened breath. Elias's arms encircled her, his calloused hands warm, drawing her close until their hearts beat as one. Selina let herself melt into his embrace, no longer a fleeting guest, no longer afraid to flee. She was a woman, desired, seen. The storm's roar faded. In the log house there was only their mingled breath, hands seeking each other with quiet urgency. Elias lifted her, crossing the narrow hall, the bedroom door closing softly behind them. In the dimness, flashes of lightning revealed trembling, resolute touches. For the first time, Selina gave everything, her fears, her past, herself, to a man. That night, no vows were needed. Their bodies, their gazes, and a love ignited like a long-banked fire fanned by the storm's wild breath spoke enough. As the tempest outside quieted, Selina lay in Elias's arms, his steady heartbeat beneath her ear. She whispered, hardly believing her own words, "Maybe I've found where I belong." Elias tightened his hold, pressing a kiss to her forehead, no words required. Wyoming's dawn rose slowly, a pale golden light slipping through the window to caress the old wooden bed. Selina opened her eyes, feeling an unfamiliar peace settle over her. The storm had passed, leaving a crisp sky and a gentle stillness in its wake. She turned, finding Elias gone from her side. A pang of emptiness flickered, then faded as the scent of baking bread and faint clatters drifted from the kitchen. Wrapping a shawl around her shoulders, Selina padded barefoot down the stairs. The scene unfolded. Elias stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled high, hair tousled, and carrying the faint smoke of last night's fire. He kneaded dough with the focus of a craftsman. Selina watched, her eyes stinging. This man wasn't the stranger she'd feared. He was someone who made her feel she belonged. Elias looked up, catching her gaze. His smile dissolved any awkwardness. "Mornin', Selina. Haven't ruined breakfast yet. Don't worry." She laughed softly, her voice husky from sleep. "Never seen a man build fences and bake bread so well." He shrugged, sliding the loaf into the iron oven, its aroma filling the room. Then he poured her a steaming mug of coffee, his hand brushing hers as he passed it. The brief touch sent her heart racing, as if the night before hadn't ended. They ate breakfast side by side, the silence no longer strained but soft, like a quiet melody. Elias watched her quietly, noting how she pinched small bites of bread, how her eyes lit up at the view beyond the window. After, he suggested, "Sky's clear now. Want to ride the ranch? I'd like you to see how Morgan's Crossing shines after a storm." Selina nodded. and soon they were at the stables. Elias steadied her as she mounted, his hand at her waist making her pause. This time, instead of pulling away, she let it linger. He noticed, his lips twitching into a faint smile, but he said nothing. On the prairie, dew-soaked grass sparkled under the early sun. The creek that had roared in the rain now murmured clear and gentle. Horses grazed leisurely, water droplets glinting as they tossed their manes. Selina breathed deep, the air laced with earth, grass, and a freshness born of the storm's passing. "It's beautiful," she said, her hand tightening on the reins. Elias drew his horse alongside, his eyes tracing her face in the sunlight. "Morgan's Crossing is always prettier with someone to share it," he said, his voice low and earnest. Selina turned, meeting his gaze, her heart stumbling again. They rode past rain-slicked fences, across boundless fields. At each stop, Elias shared stories of his work, of decisions that had cost him sleep. Selina listened, seeing layers of the man unfold, not just a rancher, but one who cherished every acre, every creature in his care. They paused under a towering cottonwood. Selina knelt, trailing her fingers through the cold creek, as she had on her first day here. From his saddle, Elias watched, his gaze fixed on her, slender, resolute form. The sight stirred a hope he'd scarcely dared, a hope she might stay. By mid-morning they returned to the ranch. Elias dismounted first, offering his hand. As Selina slid from the saddle, her body brushed his for a moment, their eyes meeting so close neither could look away. Selina flushed, stepping back, but Elias only smiled, giving her space. The tenderness between them had replaced the distance of days past. On the porch, gazing at the ranch aglow after the storm, Selina murmured, "Everything feels new." Elias nodded. "After a storm, the land's washed clean. So are we, Selina. Maybe we're starting fresh, too." She fell silent, but her heart knew. Since last night, everything had changed. They were no longer strangers bound by a fragile bargain, but two souls drawing closer. Yet a whisper of worry crept in. The path ahead wouldn't be smooth. The West held challenges beyond last night's storm, and their newborn love would face its own trials. Selina tightened her shawl, glancing at Elias. He stared toward the horizon, his hand resting lightly on the wooden rail, close to hers. The morning breeze carried the scent of fresh earth, of beginnings, of a future unknown but stirring her heart. The Wyoming morning broke with a sky so high and blue Selina thought she could touch it. Basket in hand, she followed a narrow path to the forest's edge, where wild berry bushes sagged with fruit after the storm. Clusters of deep purple gleamed among green leaves, a sweet reward for those who sought them. Selina knelt, her hands deftly picking berries, occasionally glancing at a flock of blackbirds darting across the sky. The creek's murmur soothed her, and for the first time since leaving Philadelphia, she felt truly alive, not just fleeing. But a new sound pierced the calm, heavy hoofbeats mixed with off-key whistling. Selina's heart tightened as she looked up. From the forest's rim, a stranger rode forward. He was about 40, gaunt-faced with scruffy whiskers, his tattered hat pulled low over eyes glinting with menace. "Well, ain't this a sight? A fine flower bloomin' in the wild," he rasped, his tone mocking. "Don't often see a colored woman, strolling free in Wyoming." Selina gripped her basket, goosebumps prickling her arms. She stood tall, her voice steady. "I'm just picking berries. If you've got business, move on." He laughed, dry and sharp, urging his horse closer until its shadow fell over her. "Vince Davidson's the name," he drawled, his voice thick with challenge. "Heard you're staying at Elias Morgan's spread, the man who fancies himself a saint." He leaned down, his gaze raking her like a blade. "So what are you to him? Wife? Lover? Or just passing through?" Heat surged to Selina's face. She stepped back, her trembling hands clutching the basket. Before she could answer, a voice cut through, low and sharp. "That's enough, Davidson." Selina spun around. Elias stood among the cottonwoods, tall and unyielding, a revolver glinting under his coat. His eyes were cold steel as they fixed on the stranger. Davidson squinted, smirking. "Morgan, thought you'd remember old times." "I do," Elias said curtly, stepping forward, subtly shielding Selina behind him. "And I recall you facing court for rustling cattle. You owe this land more than you've paid." The air thickened, the wind stilled, only the horses' heavy breaths breaking the silence. Davidson's hand hovered near his holster, while Elias stood calm, but Selina felt the tension like a taut bowstring. "Just paying a neighborly visit," Davidson said, his tone laced with deceit. His eyes flicked to Selina, then back to Elias. "You always play the hero, guarding the weak. But how long can you keep that up? Accidents happen plenty out here." Selina clutched Elias's coat from behind. Though fear gripped her, her heart surged at how he stood firm, unwavering, protecting her not out of duty, but care. Elias didn't flinch, his voice even but edged. "Step foot on my land again, and you're asking for trouble." For a moment, Selina braced for gunfire. But Davidson barked a hollow laugh, yanking his reins. "We'll see, Morgan. Sky ain't always this clear." He spurred his horse and galloped off, leaving a haze of dust and menace in the air. As his shadow faded, Elias's shoulders eased. He turned, seeing Selina trembling, her basket spilled on the ground. His hand found her shoulder, warm and steady. "You all right?" he asked, his voice low with concern. Selina took a deep breath, steadying herself. I'm fine, just—" Her voice caught, her eyes seeking his. "You stood up for me like no one ever has." Elias's grip tightened gently. "Selina, no one gets to speak to you like that. Not while I'm here." His words, simple and true, made her heart catch. For the first time, Selina understood his protection qua not just a host's obligation. It was a choice born of real feeling. The breeze stirred again, carrying the scent of wild berries and damp earth. Selina bent to retrieve her basket, her hands shaking. Elias gently took it from her, carrying it toward the horses, as if sharing even her smallest burdens. On the ride back to the ranch, words were few, but each time Elias glanced to check on her, his gaze warmed her more than the morning sun. Selina knew, from this day forward, her heart had taken a step, one with no turning back. The afternoon sky glowed golden, as if blessing a new beginning. Silver Creek buzzed with talk of Elias and Selina's coming wedding. Mrs. Abernathy draped white cloth over a long table. Mrs. Hensley scribbled lists for the ceremony, and children scampered about, weaving wildflower crowns. In her small room, Selina held the simple dress she'd sewn, her hands trembling with a mix of fear and joy, her heart racing. But before the evening bell had stilled, a sharp, acrid scent cut the air. From the distance, a column of black smoke spiraled skyward. A child's shout pierced the calm. "The barn! Fire!" Selina jolted, rushing out the door. Flames roared, devouring the dry wooden roof of the stable. Horses screamed in panic, their cries mingling with the wind's rising howl. "Water! Now!" Elias bellowed, his voice thundering over the gusts. He and a handful of men charged forward, hauling wooden buckets from the well. Selina didn't hesitate. She hiked her skirt and plunged into the haze, passing a sloshing pail down the line. Smoke stung her eyes, choking her, but she pressed on. The townsfolk shouted, darting back and forth, dousing flames and struggling to free the horses. Hooves pounded against stable doors, a frantic drumbeat of fear. "Hold the gate!" Elias yelled, then dove into the burning barn. Selina froze, her heart seizing. His shadow vanished in the black smoke. She screamed his name, but only the crack of collapsing timber answered. Minutes stretched like a lifetime. Then Elias staggered out, dragging two trembling horses. Flames licked his coat, smoke smudging his face. "Elias!" Selina cried, dropping her bucket and running to him. She knelt as he slumped by the fence, eyes shut, breath ragged. His hands, scorched and bloodied, groped for support. Selina clutched him, tears mixing with ash on her cheeks. Don't scare me like that," she whispered, her voice breaking. Elias cracked his eyes open, meeting hers. Despite his exhaustion, a faint smile curved his lips. "I promised. I wouldn't lose what matters most." His burned hand reached up, trembling, seeking hers. Selina gripped it tightly, pressing it to her chest. Though it seared, he squeezed back, a vow that even in chaos, he wouldn't let her go. Townsfolk swarmed, dousing the last flames, but Selina stayed by Elias. In the flickering firelight, the scene burned into every witness's heart. The man who'd walked through fire holding fast to the woman he'd chosen, and she clinging to him as if he were her world. When the final embers died, the barn stood as a charred skeleton. But Silver Creek saw, and Selina knew, Vince Davidson was no mere distant threat. He'd struck a vicious blow just before their wedding day. Selina wiped tears and soot from her face, whispering to Elias, "Whatever happens, I'm not leaving you." He squeezed her hand again, his weary eyes blazing like a fire no one could extinguish. The morning after the fire, Silver Creek didn't rest. Townsfolk streamed to Morgan's Crossing, some with shovels, others with hammers, children clutching water pails. Smoke lingered in the air, black ash blanketing the yard, but the clamor of work rose vibrant and unyielding. Selina stood on the porch, her hands gripping her skirt, eyes red from sleeplessness. Elias sat nearby, his bandaged hands resting awkwardly. He itched to join the rebuilding, but Mrs. Abernathy and two neighbors held firm. "You walked out of fire last night. That's miracle enough," they chided fondly. "Let those hands heal." Selina watched him, her heart swelling with an emotion she couldn't name. Elias wasn't one for grand gestures, yet his presence drew this community together, ready to rise from ashes. She stepped off the porch, joining the line of workers raising a new barn frame. Beams lifted under the sunlight, the sharp ring of hammers blending with eager laughter. A young woman whispered to Selina, "Morgan's saved this ranch time and again. Last night, without him, every horse would have been lost. We owe him, and now we owe you too." Selina smiled, warmth spreading through her. This place wasn't just land and timber. It was a community, a sprawling family bound by reliance. By afternoon, the new barn frame stood, neat and sturdy. The townsfolk rested, sipping cool water, their soot-streaked faces glowing under the golden sun. Selina handed Elias a cloth, sitting beside him. His eyes shimmered as he looked over the scene. See this? He said softly. This ain't just my ranch. It's Silver Creek's heart, and I want you to be part of it. Selena stilled. His words weren't just personal. They were an invitation to a new life. She thought of her first days here, clutching her old satchel, haunted by the urge to flee. She remembered the moment his eyes first met hers. Now, after fire and ash, the East no longer called her. Elias, her voice trembled. I thought I was just testing 2 weeks. But I see now. I can't leave this place. I can't leave you. He paused. Then, despite his aching hands, knelt before her. The crowd hushed, all eyes turning to them. Elias looked up, his gaze deep and steady, his voice firm as driven stakes. Selena Carter, the first time I asked, it was a deal. But now, before friends, neighbors, and this land, I'm asking with love. Marry me, not out of duty, but for our hearts. Selena's breath caught, tears brimming. The community held its breath, waiting. She stepped forward, lifting his face, her fingers grazing the bandages still scented with smoke. Yes, she whispered, loud enough for Silver Creek to hear. I will. Not because of any arrangement, but because I choose you. Cheers erupted, rippling across the yard. Hands clapped, children ran in circles. Mrs. Hensley wiped tears, and Mrs. Abernathy muttered, The heavens finally got it right. Elias rose, pulling Selena into his arms. His bandaged hands held hers tightly, an unbreakable vow. She leaned into his chest, hearing his steady heartbeat, knowing she'd truly found her place. Above, the afternoon sun poured golden light, illuminating the new barn frame, gilding the promise just spoken. A beginning, forged from ashes. The wedding day dawned with crystalline sunlight, breaking through weeks of rain and wind. Silver Creek's small wooden church glowed with wildflowers and white ribbons, hand-tied by the townsfolk. Every pew brimmed with people, farmers in rough cloth, the storekeeper's wife, children with scrubbed faces, all eager to witness the moment. Selena stood in a small back room, her heart pounding so fiercely she gripped her skirt to steady herself. The prairie dress, white and simple, was sewn by her and Mrs. Abernathy over sleepless nights. Soft cotton, a modest square neckline, gently puffed sleeves. A thin veil draped her face, not lavish, but when Selena caught her reflection, she saw a new woman, no longer a runaway, but a true bride. The organ's soft notes rose. Selena took a deep breath and stepped forward. Sunlight streamed through the windows, making her veil shimmer, and the room hushed for a moment. Elias stood at the altar, his clean shirt tucked neatly, his brown coat plain but proud. His eyes glistened, his hands trembling as he saw her approach. With each step, the townsfolk watched, not with curiosity but with welcome. A little girl offered a wildflower, laying it on her path. An elderly woman smiled, whispering, "She's a beauty." Selena heard, and tears welled behind her veil. When she reached Elias, the world seemed to pause. The old preacher's blessing rolled out, steady and warm, but Selena heard only her own heartbeat, and the deep blue gaze locked on hers. At the pivotal moment, Elias's trembling hands lifted her veil. His fingers hesitated, not from fear, but from awe. The veil rose, revealing Selena's face radiant in the sunlight. Their eyes met, and his hands, though unsteady, held hers firmly, never letting go. "Selena Carter," he said softly, voice catching. "From today, you don't have to go anywhere else." Selina smiled, a tear slipping free. And from today, I choose to stay forever. The preacher's amen echoed as he pronounced them husband and wife. Elias leaned down, his kiss sweet but certain, sealed amid cheers and resounding applause. After the ceremony, the community feasted together. Long tables groaned with bread, roasted meat, and garden vegetables. A fiddle sang, children darted across the yard, and adults raised glasses in toasts. Selina moved among them, no longer met with probing glances, only genuine acceptance and joy. A woman patted her shoulder, smiling warmly. You're not just Elias's wife. You're part of Silver Creek now. Selina nodded, a quiet happiness swelling within. From a distance, Elias watched her, his eyes still brimming with emotion. As dusk fell, he took his wife's hand, his gaze trembling but resolute. In his arms, Selina knew she had everything: a love chosen freely, a home and a community that had opened its heart to her. A year had passed since Silver Creek's church bells rang for the wedding. The bitter winter had given way to spring, and life at Morgan's Crossing had blossomed in ways Selina never dared dream. The small wooden schoolhouse in town now boasted a new classroom. Each morning, Selina draped a pale green shawl over her shoulders, books in hand, greeted by the chatter of children. Under her guidance, kids who once knew only toil now sounded out letters, their clumsy script brimming with hope. When they laughed, Selina knew her heart had found its true calling. Meanwhile, Elias toiled at the ranch. He rebuilt the barn stronger than before, expanded the cattle herd, and sowed barley on the eastern fields. In the afternoons, his silhouette stood tall on the prairie, shoulders broad as the cottonwoods rooted deep in the earth. The community still turned to him for matters big and small, and he listened, lent his strength, never complaining. Their shared life was simple, yet each day overflowed with moments of connection. Warm suppers by the hearth, rides side by side to the creek, quiet nights together, listening to the winds murmur through the window. Then, in early summer, joyful news arrived. Selina rested a hand on her belly, her eyes shining as she whispered to Elias, "We're going to have a child." In that moment, Elias froze, then knelt, pressing his ear to her, his radiant smile erasing all weariness. One evening, they sat on the porch, the prairie aglow with golden dusk. Elias's arm circled Selina's shoulders, his other hand resting on her belly, where new life grew day by day. Her small hand covered his, locking together in a gesture both tender and steadfast. The evening breeze carried the scent of young grass and distant cattle lowing. Sunlight gilded Selina's hair into burnished copper, her eyes reflecting the boundless sky. Elias leaned in, kissing her hair softly, and murmured, "We've come far, Selina, and it all started with a choice." She smiled, tears glinting at the corners of her eyes. "A choice I'll never regret." By the porch post, a new wooden plaque hung, carved with Elias's steady hand. "Love chosen, not forced, builds a home eternal." The breeze stirred, and the last rays of daylight bathed the words, as if the land itself bore witness to the legacy they were forging. A home born of willing love, a haven to endure in Silver Creek's memory. A year, and many more would pass, but the image of that porch at Morgan's Crossing, Elias and Selina side by side, hands clasped, eyes on the sunset, would linger as a quiet testament to love. Not a love arranged, but one chosen, held, and built day by day. That's what makes this tale strike the heart of those who've walked half a lifetime, who know true happiness lies not in flash or clamor, but in a hand that holds you through the storm and stays when peace returns. If Elias and Selena's story stirs a memory, a glance, a promise, a moment in Punt, your own life, share it with us below. We'd be honored to hear it. And if you're hankering for more tales of love in the Wild West, stories of loyalty, grit, and late-blooming devotion, give us a nod, stay tuned, and ring that bell. We'll meet you at the next story's fire.